Good evening. I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, August 7th, 2018, and the Portland Board of Public Education is meeting at City Hall and Council Chambers. Would the superintendent please call the roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Atkinson?
Here.
Ms. Seeliger? Ms. Vendel? Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Thompson?
Here.
Ms. Morioni?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Presente.
Mr. Balfons?
Here.
Ms. Clater? Ms. Farah? Ms. Yuri?
Here.
Ms. Power-Rakowski? And Chair Tabarro.
Here. And as noted before, Ms. Seeliger is sick this evening. Ms. Vendel had a work obligation, and Ms. Clater did let me know that she was flying in and hoping to make it, but her flight was delayed and she's not able to make it. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I wanted to, before we begin, entertain a motion while we still have a majority of the public with us that were here for the public hearing tonight, to take the agenda item out of order from new business, consideration and action to support a resolution on non-citizen resident voting referendum question. That's a motion by Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Balfons. All those in favor of taking that item out of order? It is unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. And now, consideration and action to support a resolution on non-citizen resident voting referendum question. Is there a motion? Ms. Marioni, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. And would the superintendent have anything additional on this motion?
No, ma'am.
We just had a public hearing on it. The superintendent did a presentation on the issue. I think the board is pretty well versed on this. I will take public comment. Again, I would ask people to keep their comments to anything that they haven't said yet, or that they feel they need to address based on other comments that have been made tonight. Before I do that, are there any clarifying questions from the board? Seeing none, then I would open it back up to public comment. Seeing no public comment, I'll close public comment and open it up to the board for deliberation. Who wants to speak? Mr. Atkinson.
Thanks. I guess I'm the opener tonight. I want to first express my gratitude to everybody who came out and spoke on all of the many sides of this issue tonight. I remain committed to moving forward this resolution. I think that there was a lot of talk about, is this the right time? And I think that that's often a consideration that seems to come up when things like expanding voting rights and other issues of civil rights come up, and there's a lot of there's always concern, as someone mentioned, mostly from the folks who are in power already, about when something should happen, and often a lot of talk about many reasons why something should be put off or delayed. I'm ready to move forward on this, and I hope that my colleagues will be as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Morioni.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To those viewers at home that weren't here or didn't see our workshop, It was not televised,
Was
or what? Oh, it was televised, okay. Well, to those who are just tuning in, to catch them up a bit, I was unsure of where I was going to vote tonight. However, thank you to the community for coming out and expressing your opinions, and it really helped me frame my decision tonight around this. And a couple of comments that were made that I think were extremely valuable were around how this is important to show our values and to show what we support as a board. I was, as I had mentioned earlier, I was struggling with the fact of is this under the purview or the responsibility of the board? And then that was also raised in the comments by the community, that we also represent our adult learners on the board, those that are of age to vote, and whether they're in high school or at our adult education classes. And what we are doing tonight is moving forward to indicate to the council that, yes, we want this issue or this question to go to our Portland voters to decide. I do not feel that I want to stand in the way of moving this issue forward at this time. And so I will be voting in support of it tonight. And I just want to, again, thank you to the community for coming out and voicing your opinion. I know it's not often easy, and this is not an easy topic at all, but I'm willing to be bold and brave and step forward in a new path for, again, our city and what we are, how we want to be known, whether it be nationally, even globally. But thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to, I couldn't, I was really hesitating whether or not I would make the point that I'm about to make, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity. She knows. So I just wanted to point out that it's very difficult for me to ignore the undertone of privilege that comes across when we're having these discussions. I don't think it came out from public comment tonight, but I think I'm not going to say anything. Oh, hopefully I'm not saying anything that none of us are already uniquely aware of. When we talk about the opportunity to participate in votes, often you hear, things like, that's the point of being a citizen, like that's what you wait for. That's like the grand prize at the end of the race, when you get to be a citizen. I made an example about how, citizens in Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands and in Guam have very limited voting opportunities. So I just wanted to caution us, or rather make us aware of the way that we communicate when we say these things, and to avoid bringing in a tone of saviors to the immigrant community. Like we're here to protect them from the dangers of participating in the voting booth, because, God forbid, then someone could use that as an argument against your community. I remember in 2016, I caucused for a man that I knew very well had very small chance of winning the national election, but I, by principle, stood in that room and I said, I'm going to support this candidate because he supports and he stands for the same things that I do, knowing very well that he had a very difficult challenge ahead of him. But again, by principle, I did what I thought I could live with and what I thought would be best for my community, and I felt really good about it. And so tonight, again, I feel really strong about supporting this resolution. I want to clarify that before, when I said that I was unsure or on the fence about what the role of the school board is, I've never been unclear about the fact that extending the opportunity to participate in voting to legal residents would affect the school board work. That is clear, and I think a lot of people made great examples of how that is the case. My concern, or rather where I was on the fence, was this came up simply because it's at the city council level. And so we're doing this to show our support. This is not something that was guided or that came directly from the school board. And so that's where I was trying to explain that I was torn as to what our role was. We are, like we've said so far, we're expressing support for an idea based on the issue that it represents, because like I said, it impacts us. So I guess that's all I wanted to say to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Thompson?
So I think from some of the speakers this evening, I think that, again, I want to make very clear from my point of view, first and foremost, thank you for coming out, and I really appreciate you being here and for the persuasive comments. Some of them were very persuasive. And I don't feel like we're standing in the way if we vote no on this, in the way of moving this issue to the voters, because I ultimately think it is a voter issue for the community at large. It's an important issue. It's a very important issue, and one where the community as a whole should weigh in. I still feel that the council is the body to make the decision and whether to send it out to the voters, which I do support, putting the question out to the community at large and allow the voters to vote. I think it's a huge issue, and I don't mean any comparison, but it took us a long time to get the council to put out the vote for the school buildings, and this is a much larger issue, and so I hope that they'll do the same thing and follow suit to let the voters decide, because I think there was decisions made even on that from a small body opposed to the community at large, and this is an issue that the community at large should take up. I don't think it's a reflection of whether I support our students or not, or our parents' engagement. I'm thrilled that you're here this evening. I'm thrilled that you made some really great comments. And again, it's not, I do want parents in our community at large to be part of the process, part of the decision making. So I don't see my vote here this evening being against any of that. I see it that more so, I don't feel as though my role as a school board member is to make this decision. I feel like my role is to have the council make their decision and put it out to the voters. And so I've always, I can be persuaded, but at the same time, I don't make decisions on, I am up for re-election, and there's been the comments of, well, you are up for re-election, so maybe you should think about that, on how you vote on this. And I have never made decisions based upon whether someone will elect me or not. I make my decisions based on data and information and what my gut tells me. So there you go. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Davis?
I also want to thank the many people who came out tonight, and I strongly urge you to come back and talk to the City Council, who is actually the body that will make the decision. Your thoughts and comments, much like those that I heard in 2009 and 2010, are extremely moving, and I think our council needs to hear them as they make their decision about whether or not they put this out as an amendment to our charter. That is their responsibility. It is, however, not and I'm clear about that, having been a charter commissioner. I'm not a city councilor. I'm on the school board now. My support for this issue during the charter deliberations was clear. As Chair Tabarro mentioned, we co-authored the minority report, which put into our charter report the beliefs of the 5 of us who voted in support at that time of having this come out as part of the charter changes. We did not prevail, but we felt strongly enough to actually put our thoughts in writing, and that's part of what you had in your packets tonight, were the thoughts that we committed to paper in 2010. But at this point in time, my position on the issue of voting is really quite clear and has not changed. But I'm now on the school board, and so the question before me tonight is whether or not I believe the school board should vote in advance of the city council on this issue. It's an issue over which we do not have decision-making power. And I concur with my colleague, Ms. Thompson, that it's not for us to decide. It is for the city council to decide. I have spoken with city councilors. I will continue to speak with city councilors. They know where I stand. They've known where I stand for the last 8 years. It's in writing. But for me tonight, my vote is about whether or not I believe the board should take a stand at this particular point in time. I would be more comfortable if this was coming to us after the council had voted than it is coming to us now. I don't want anyone in the audience to think that that this is a resolution that somehow measures or is a litmus test of whether or not school board members support immigrants or support voting rights or not, because it is not that. We are being asked to, in advance of the deliberations of another elected body, and we were lobbied to do this, to take a position. I don't feel comfortable as a member of this elected body to take that position in advance of the elected body whose responsibility it is to take it up. As I said earlier, I have talked with counselors and I will continue to do so. They know my position, and that has not changed since 2010. So tonight I will continue to vote no. I wish that we could postpone this perhaps and take it up at a different time when it perhaps is a little bit more in order and has had more time for community conversation of the entire community. So that's where I stand. Thank you again for the people who turned out, and as I say, please come back and talk to the City Council, who is the body that can actually make this decision. This is not the body that can. We can pass a resolution, we can have an opinion, but we're not the decision-making body. The City Council is, and they are the people that need to hear the stories and the thoughts that we heard tonight, and that the Charter Commission heard 8 years ago when both Anna and I chose to support this issue and support it going to referendum at that time. Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I just thought of something I wanted to bring up. I just wanted to remind my colleagues that back in February, this board unanimously and enthusiastically passed a resolution on gun violence, an issue that's hardly educational. I think that we brought it up because we've seen in the news, school shootings, but I think people in underprivileged communities have been dealing with gun violence long before it became an educational conversation. So for this board to say that passing resolutions that might or might not fall under the purview of educational conversations, I think it's kind of taken out of being looked at in a vacuum. And it to me points at underlying reasons to not support this resolution that have not been spoken tonight. I'm ready to vote. Thank you.
Mr. Atkinson.
I just wanted to speak to the point about whether we should voice our opinion on this in advance of the council making their decision. I think we're going to be, our body is going to be affected by a change in the charter of this type. We would be accountable to a different set of and a more comprehensive set of our community. For me, District 4, we have many non-citizen folks living in the community, and I want to be accountable to them. I want to be accountable to you. I want to be accountable to everybody who's affected. And so I want to have my voice right now say, we're going to be affected by this. Our body is going to be affected by this. And so I want to be able to say, we would like to have this change go into effect. And it's sort of the same thing. I want to be accountable. I want to be accountable to the people who the decisions that I make affect. And sort of like our level, we'd like to be accountable to, to be accountable to the folks who live in our community, I think, and I think it's totally within our purview, within our realm to make that point to the council. So that doesn't really hold water for me. So, thanks.
Ms. Davis.
I think that reasonable colleagues and people can disagree on these points, and respectfully so. So I understand your position. It is different than mine, and it is that interchange and discussion between people who believe different things about a particular issue, which actually helps us to work the issue and to understand it and come down wherever we may be. I just hope that we continue to be respectful of each other as we do that, and not assume that there's other intent or other things going on.
Absolutely, and if I was disrespectful in any way, I apologize. But I think that that's talking about the diversity of opinion. There's a large section of our population in our city whose voices are not being heard, whose voices are not valued in the same way. In a very official sense, I do my best, but that's my choice, and that's me. If someone else is sitting in my chair, they may decide I'm only going to be accountable to the folks who actually have the power to vote and ignore others. I don't think that's anybody on this board's opinion, but we have elections every year to change who sits on this body. So. I'll leave it there.
Anyone else? So I think I made my comments during the workshop, and they haven't changed. I just want to kind of expand upon some comments that were just made. Mr. Rodriguez talked about our purview and that we passed a resolution around gun violence. And I think it is the purview of this body especially to engage in passing resolutions, specifically because we are not a law-making body. We don't write ordinances, we don't pass state legislation. We have to live by them, as does our entire school district and the parents and the students that we represent. And so it's absolutely within our purview, and the resolution is the vehicle for that, to make a statement to other governing bodies that have the authority to write those laws. So I think that's an important point. And again, as to the timing of it, it's as Mr. Atkinson pointed out, it can always be the wrong time. There are going to be people running for office next year too. And I think we heard a loud sentiment from the community tonight that feels that this is the right time. And Marnie said it as well, that the sentiment that came out from the public, that this is really standing with parents, standing with our community. It's that statement that we're making to the council. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting this evening as well. Ms. Morioni.
I guess it also just struck me that we as a board collectively with our Portland Promise, talking about all access for all of our students, equity, we've worked on that for years now, and it just reminded me to think to be able to explain to my students, or excuse me, my children, and to our students collectively, but for those in the audience to be able to explain to their children, when they say all access, they really mean it. In terms of now, they are bringing it even to a higher level of responsibility for us to, it's another way for me to show that we're not just talking the talk sometimes around it. And I don't mean in any way to say that my fellow board members that are not going to be agreeing on this tonight or not going to be voting in favor, I understand completely the rationale and the reasoning. I absolutely do. But I'm just saying that I'm really forming my opinion around this tonight. And that's how I just want you to know that it's really made a big impact and a big difference of when we all get together and we can all share our opinions together around these important topics. It's very, very helpful. So thank you again, and again, all access and equity, I really want to stand by that in moving this forward, and not necessarily make it all around a non-U.S. citizen and around an immigrant refugee. I would love to get that off the table and make it more around all access and equity in our community to go to the municipal level. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Atkinson?
Thanks. Sorry, I've been wondering when the right time to introduce my amendment is, and I think everybody up at the board level has a copy of this, but so yes, I'd like to propose a small amendment, which is an additional whereas statement. I'd like to, I think it would fit best sort of at the, well, in the version I'm looking at, the bottom whereas on the first page, maybe under that. So that whereas reads, the district's Portland promise explicitly commits the district to increasing parent engagement in order to achieve its equity goal. So this additional whereas here, if I might read it, Madam Chair, is whereas the Portland Public Schools motto, Prepared and Empowered, affirms our district's commitment to prepare and empower all students to pursue a productive post-secondary path, including civic engagement, regardless of citizenship status.
Thank you. Mr. Atkinson has proposed an amendment. Is there a second? Ms. Morioni? And would you like to speak any further to your amendment?
Yes, I guess as I read through, the one that I read before, increasing parent engagement, I think is an important piece. But I think also we are committed to leaving students prepared and empowered for their post-secondary path, and to me that includes engaging in the governance of our city and in voting. So that's the intent of the additional paragraph.
Are there any clarifying questions on the amendment? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the amendment? Seeing none, any board discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I would call for a vote on the amendment. Everybody understands what we're voting on? Yes. I think everybody gets it. Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of supporting Mr. Atkinson's amendment, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. And is there any further board discussion on the main motion as amended? Ms. Yuri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just one final sentiment, and we've heard it before, but back when a lot of the school shootings were happening and it was a really scary time, and we were coming forward with the resolution on gun violence, I remember sitting at Casco Bay and hearing Superintendent Botana's board address, or superintendent's report, and actually tearing up, because having the influence of having the resolution, having the board really put their values on the line and put their money where their mouth is and support students, that means so much. Because at school, like, we are immigrants, and not everybody, but still, like, it's a very diverse community. I'm from Vietnam, everyone's from different places. And I think that we can all honor that and be a part of that no matter where you're from. And it means so much to students to see that and to see the board stepping up. And we know. I think a lot of times the work that the board does can seem very distanced from actual school life and students, and maybe sometimes people aren't aware, but they really are. And it's incredibly powerful. So I think it's all of our responsibility, and especially my duty, to make sure that students know that this is happening, and process or not, they will know, and it's always important. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yuri. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of supporting a resolution on non-citizen resident voting referendum question as amended, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. 4, with the student in the affirmative. And all those opposed? Davis, Balfons, and Thompson. And with that, the motion passes. Thank you again to those that came out tonight and stuck with us. Okay. Okay, so now we're moving into the report of the chair. For the report of the chair this evening, I just wanted to point you to, on your desks, you should have a handout entitled 2018 Superintendent Evaluation. And I just wanted to give an update to the board that we are going to be going into our annual review process of the superintendent. I've sat down with Superintendent Botana, and we've kind of outlined the process for this year. We modeled it after the process for last year, so you'll see beginning on August 21st, we'll be having an executive session that night to get materials from Superintendent Botana, including his self-evaluation, and we'll hear discussion and questions of the board around that. September 4th, the board will have to have completed our evaluation tool. You'll be sent that electronically. It's the same form that we did last year, and we did it electronically. So that'll be due September 4th. September 18th will be the board review. We'll have a draft review that we'll be discussing based on the feedback from the board. October 2nd, we'll be having a discussion of the contract that we'll be asking Superintendent Botana to sign based on the review. That will be with our legal counsel. I spoke with yesterday. He'll be prepared for that. And on October 16th, we'll be presenting a final letter and discussion with Superintendent Botana. So it'll be some component every meeting right through October. Any questions or thoughts around that, Ms. Davis?
This is a responsibility of the Finance Committee and is generally run by the Finance Chair. Is there a change in our process this year?
So we have been, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I did discuss this with Ms. Vindel, who is the chair of the Finance Committee, and I think because of her other obligations, I offered, after discussion with Mr. Varro, the possibility of Mr. Varro running this process. She indicated that would be fine, and she actually turned over records to Chair Tavarro, so we have that. She does want to continue to be the chair of the Finance Committee and is preparing for the August 14th meeting where you are scheduled to review the budget process, but she did accede to this being run by Chair Tavarro.
Okay, thank you, because as I say, I believe in our policy and process, it is a responsibility of the Finance Committee, Finance and Personnel Committee, and the chair of the Finance Committee, so.
You're correct in that. It has been, and last year we did this jointly, this work together, but it was a matter of capacity for the finance chair in her obligations this year. So, yes, Ms. Thompson.
No, I was just going to clarify, having been in your position as well. In the policy, it says finance chair in conjunction with the chair, so the chair has taken over past precedent, so.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years, it's been finance, but in the policy itself, it says in conjunction, so.
I think, yes, you're correct. Any other questions or comments on that? So we'll be, that'll be part of our business going forward for the next couple of months. And that is all I have for a report this evening, other than I hope that everybody had a great break, had a wonderful July, and got some time off to relax and have fun and do whatever you do with your families. We don't have a report of the students this evening, so moving into report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I feel funny now welcoming everybody back because it feels like we've been here for a long time. But welcome back to all of our board members and the public that's here or watching us at home. Today, as you know, is the first board meeting of the 2018-19 school year, and I'm very proud and happy to be starting my third year here in the Portland Public Schools. These past 2 years have been a tremendous learning opportunity for me. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to lead here in this great city as we strive to achieve our Portland Promise for all of our students. I feel very fortunate to be able to work for and with a board that is committed to the goals of the Portland Promise and ensuring that all of our students graduate prepared and empowered for the next level. I'm also grateful to my leadership team, many of whom are here tonight. This will be our second full year together as a team, and I am proud to work alongside you every day. Today, we held the first day of our administrators' back-to-school retreat, and I had the opportunity to review our work to date and talk with our grade school and district leaders about the work ahead. Our day started with a poem recitation by our very own Alan Manga. He provided the inspiration that we need to remind us of why we do this work. Today was an important day in the Alan Manga story because, as you may know, we received word from the Justice Department that the National Endowment for the Arts has agreed to change its criteria and not discriminate on the basis of a student's immigration status. Alan is a remarkable young man who is very, very accomplished at his art. Today, he recited a poem, it's a new one for him, about making change in the world. And it couldn't be more fitting because Alan has done that himself. There's a great deal of work for us ahead this year. In short order, we will be organizing to review our district's capacity and enrollment with the goal of making decisions over the coming months of the number, the organization of our schools, with an eye to right-sizing our footprint to meet our facilities, programming, and budgetary needs. Also, in the next couple of months, we will be presenting a citywide collaborative strategy to reach the board's 2011 stated goal of universal pre-K access in Portland. We will be issuing an RFP for a contractor to break ground on the first buildings for our future construction project at Lyseth Elementary School. We will be inaugurating the new Amanda Rowe Elementary School. We'll be considering other capital project requests, including enhancement to safety and security in our schools, and we will have to develop a budget that will allow us to continue to work towards being a more equitable institution for all of our students and doing all of the other things that we otherwise need to do day to day to manage the educational, resource, and policy direction of this outstanding school district. I know it feels like we're back to school, but we have a little bit less than a month before students return to school. I hope that everyone is enjoying these final weeks of vacation and replenishing in preparation for this exciting year ahead. I look forward to the 2018-19 school year and look forward to working with all of you, our district and school leaders, our teachers, families, and students on achieving our Portland Promise today. In the audience today is Kelly Hassan. You will be voting on Kelly's contract later today to serve as the teacher leader at Peaks Island School. Kelly, as many of you know, has served as a principal in the district previously, including a stint at Peaks Island in the past, as well as at Hall Elementary School. Kelly is also a graduate of Peaks Island, so I cannot think of a stronger candidate for this position. And when I wrote this, I didn't know if Kelly was going to stick around for the whole meeting, so I wanted to make sure that I called her out during this. I think that because we've moved some of the heavier items, it might be possible for you to stick around. But if not, I just wanted to bring her to your attention in case she had to leave before the board votes tonight. Also on personnel matters, I wanted to publicly thank Angela Atkinson-Duenas, our Research Assessment and Data Director, who resigned recently to join Baxter Academy as their co-principal. Angela has been an important part of the Portland Public Schools for the past 3 years, and we will miss her contributions, but we're glad that she will only be a short distance away and continue her work to create high-quality educational options for all students in Portland. And finally, I would like to express my commitment to the families of Maine Girls Academy students. When the school announced that they would not open for this school year, I contacted all of the families that had previous PPS routes and invited them back to our district. I know that several of them have already taken the necessary steps to do so, and I would like to renew my outreach to all of the MGA families and let them know that we are anxious to serve their students in our schools. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Report of the Secretary. Consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of May 17th, 2018. Is there a motion? Ms. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Morioni. Are there any questions to the meeting minutes? Seeing none. Any public comment on the meeting minutes? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of May 17th, 2018, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. Consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of June 19th, 2018. Is there a motion? Mr. Rodriguez, seconded by Ms. Morioni. Are there any questions to these meeting minutes? Seeing none. Is there any public comment on these meeting minutes? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of June 19th, 2018, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. Consent items. Would the superintendent like to read the acknowledgement?
Second, I'm just trying to catch up with you. So under Board Policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods of significant value and of symbolic importance. Chair Terraro and I discussed the protocol for these acceptances, and going forward, rather than read every contribution individually, I will reference the consent items, thank all of our contributors. As required by the policy, all of the donations will be listed, and they are this time, in the board memo accompanying this item, and as has been the practice, each donor will receive a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and also for their tax purposes. So with that, I would like to thank the many contributors to the Portland Public Schools that have made donations of durable goods, substantial value, and historical or commemorative significance. The contributors are listed in the board agenda materials by name and donation, and we are very grateful for their support of our work.
Thank you. Moving into board focus on educational issues, we have the Nellie Mae presentation. Would the superintendent like to start this off?
I would. Today we have a treat for you. As you know, this past year was the final year of support for the district's partnership with the Nellie Mae Foundation, the Nellie Mae Education Foundation. This project has been a part of the Portland educational landscape for the past 8 years. As a result of it, our high schools today are very different and by all measures better places than they were when this project started. Our staff has worked tirelessly to realize the vision for student-centered learning that was the explicit goal of this effort. Today, to recap some of the work, are Maureen O'Brien and Kim Lip from Jobs for Maine's Graduates, our partner organization in this effort. So Maureen, take it away.
Hi. Do I have to turn this mic on?
It's on. It's always on.
Okay. So I'm pleased to be here tonight. That was an inspiring opening to the meeting. I'm glad I was here for that. For some of you, this will be the 5th time you've heard this from me. I stop by at the end of every year, but this will be the final time because, as Superintendent Botana mentioned, we are done. So I just wanted to review some of the work that's been done, some of the accomplishments, and we'll keep it at kind of a, we're not going to get lost in the weeds, but happy to take any questions. So this does date back 8 years, and the funding dates back 7 years. And I don't know if you guys have, there is a handout in your packet. I'm kind of going to go through that and give you a little bit of detail. So the initial grant was for 3.5 years, and it was for something called district level systems change, which was the Nellie Mae Education Foundation's vision for how districts can support the work of schools to make them more student-centered. Portland was one of 4 districts in New England that was awarded these grants. In the end, it was a 7-year process for us that totaled $8.7 million. I included on the sheet some of the other investments that Nellie Mae has made in Portland Public Schools because I'm not actually sure everybody's aware of them. But over the years of this grant, there was also the Larry O'Toole Award that was given to Derek Pierce for his leadership in student-centered learning. That was a $100,000 grant for Casco Bay High School to use at their discretion in 2014. More recently, they provided $25,000 of support for the kickoff of Teach Portland, the district's diversity and hiring initiative. Portland High School had a $17,000 grant to do mission and vision work in 2017. And currently, coming up any day now, there's a $12,500 grant to fund work on habits of work and learning. So Nellie Mae's investment in the district actually goes deeper than the $8.7 million that we always talk about. But that's what I'm going to focus on tonight is the 8.7 and the 6.5 to 7 years that work's been going on. So the areas of focus have been the same from the beginning, and areas of focus also tend to be your budget priorities, so this is where the lion's share of the funding went. The first was learning models and professional development. So Portland High School and Deering High School were invited as part of this process to choose learning models. Of course, Casco Bay already had expeditionary learning at the time. Portland High School chose Johns Hopkins Talent Development Secondary, and Deering went with the International Study Schools Network with a focus on global competencies, and funding was also provided to Casco Bay to continue their work with expeditionary learning. At the same time, there was a lot of professional development that happened around those learning models, around the implementation, around new classes and new teacher teaming that was brought in with the models. As well as probably, I'm thinking 4 years worth of professional development around proficiency-based learning. The next priority area was teacher leadership. One of the stated goals of the initial grant was to elevate teacher voice in our schools and to make sure that they had a role in leadership. As part of the early part of the process, it became clear that actual teacher leader positions would be necessary to get the work to the ground level in the schools, and so positions were created at all 3 schools. Eventually, Casco Bay's kind of got absorbed into some other positions, and Portland and Deering's became permanent locally funded positions 3 years ago. Expanded learning opportunities were a huge part of this work. Supported by JMG employees based at Portland High School and Deering High School, the Expanded Learning Opportunity Coordinators. You guys may recall those just became permanent positions as well, moved into the local budget this year. Those expanded learning opportunities, I was actually trying to calculate a number for you, and it got kind of silly because there are so many, these are sort of embedded in so many places in the schools now, including the capstones that are part of the new graduation policy. So suffice to say, hundreds, if not thousands, of students have benefited from everything from the freshman interviews that we do every year with the entire freshman class, job shadows, which is generally a sophomore experience at both high schools, internships and independent studies, service learning, and capstones. So I almost can't count at this point how many of those have been done. The final focus area was student and family engagement, and I really should have included community engagement when I added that bullet point, because without the businesses and the nonprofits in the community, that work never could have been done. The probably most notable partnership that I just want to mention is the lead community partner in this work, which was also funded by Nellie Mae, but separate from the school district and JMG's work. And that's the group that brought you Portland Empowered and Youth Empowered Portland. Particularly the family engagement work, the Portland Empowered work has been extremely effective. You guys will remember the manifesto that they created and then the family engagement policy that they helped to bring forth. So that work will no doubt continue. They've really turned into a vibrant organization all on their own. There are additional student voice pieces at every school that I think you're aware of a lot of them. There are new student groups. There have been changes to student leadership structures, a lot of efforts to bring in students who would not traditionally have been part of the student leadership structure in their schools. And then one thing that you guys may never have even seen was we produced pre-K through grade 8 family learning guides, which were translated into 7 languages and handed out to students and parents so that parents and families had an understanding of what they could do at home to support their students through the school year. That was completely grant-funded, completely locally produced with local educators. So, as I said, the focus remained the same from day one, but also from day one was the discussion of sustainability. Nellie Mae was very clear that they wanted that was on the agenda at all times, was the question that everybody asks, which is what happens when the grant ends. So sustainability has been woven into the work. The conversation has been happening, at our monthly meetings for years. These are just a few that I came up with, that are fairly obvious. I think that if we spent 20 minutes talking about ourselves, we'd find dozens and dozens more. But starting with the strategic plan, the Portland Promise, that was funded through the grant, including the year of work that Malia did building the Portland Promise, as well as the communication and distribution of the policy. The proficiency-based learning work that's being done in the graduation policy were directly supported by the grant. Additional communication capacity, this is everything from helping the high schools design better flyers to give out at their 8th grade open houses that maybe talked less about the block schedule and more about, the inherent value to students. As well as support for, particularly early on, for communicating with families about the proficiency-based learning work. Also, this one, I sort of forgot about this one, but there was a lot of support from JMG as the resource support organization in this work around social media early on. The district is very active on social media now. I don't know how many followers the superintendent has on Twitter, but there was a time when it was sort of unknown, and were you going to pull out your phone and tell me? Oh,
I said, let me find out.
So, but there was a time when social media was a very foreign concept, and so we helped to get some of that up and running and make it a little more comfortable place for people to work. And then, most of this other stuff I've already kind of talked about. There's the expanded learning opportunities, which are now woven into the schools. There's a global competence focus at Deering. The student support blocks that were created, the freshman academy at Portland High School, the capstone projects that were built into the graduation policy. So while we reached our goal, which was within the schools to stop calling this the Nellie Mae work early on and make it not about the grant and the funding, but make it about the work and the students and the results, I think if you dig down below the surface on a lot of the things that are happening, you'll find the grant is underneath it. So finally, I just wanted to thank you board members, particularly some of you who've been here since day one. On behalf of JMG and this partnership, it was very clear from Nellie Mae, as you guys know, that without the support of the board and the business community and the community of Portland, they would not have continued to invest in Portland Public Schools. So thank you for that, and thank you for the time that you put in.
Thank you. Any comments, Ms. Thompson?
I want to thank you and Ms. Lip, who are here this evening, and many other people that have contributed to the Nellie Mae. But I also want to mention, too, that Ms. Morioni and I went to Colorado last year, and the Nellie Mae also granted some funds to allow us to have professional development as school board members. So we're very appreciative of that as well. But there's been many things over the years. I know that there was some trepidation when we first started this whole venture, and it's hard to believe how many years ago we went into this discussion and how far we've come talking about various models and things of that nature when we were talking with Nellie Mae folks and where we are today. So I still think it was the right decision for this board and for the district, and I'm very thankful and grateful for them partnering with us and allowing us that opportunity. So thank you very much for all of your work as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Morioni.
Thank you so much, Maureen and Kim, and to all of the JMG partners that we had. You're right, early on, I think the board at the time was skeptical itself, particularly around the sustainability question as well. So I remember the Nellie Mae leaders would come, have questions around how is this going to be sustained, and as a board, we were still working on the multi-year budget idea and trying to figure out how is this going to be integrated. I'm so glad that we stuck with it, like you said, but it wouldn't have happened without your assistance and leadership to both of you. So thank you so much for that. And it's really great to see that, there's some pieces that we didn't sustain, but the ones that we have sustained, I think, are extremely valuable and are really helpful to our students. And to see them again the multiple pathways and have different options, and even that alone, helping the board frame it more into not just looking at it as a 4-year college track, but many other opportunities available, and looking at job opportunities and various career paths. It opened our minds, I think, a lot in the community. So thank you for all your hard work. You'll be missed.
Thank you.
I also wanted to just say thank you. I know when I came onto the board, we were kind of right in the middle of this work, and I remember meeting with you, Maureen, kind of early on and going over what exactly is this Nellie Mae grant. And I think the work that we did around the graduation policy and really looking at, well, what does a Portland diploma look like? You were very active in that role, and I think the Nellie Mae work has kind of become synonymous with that in a lot of ways. I appreciate the work that you've done, and this has been a successful partnership in my mind. So thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, Maureen, because we have some more things to say still. So first of all,
It's a shame you let everybody else leave.
I'm a bit of a Johnny-come-lately to the Nellie Mae work, obviously. But I can tell you that from the very, very beginning of my time in Portland, all the way back to the interview process, I have known and appreciated the tremendous amount of work that went into the changes that you've talked about. I started my career early on in high school improvement efforts, and so I've seen a lot of that work across the country, and I know how incredibly difficult it is, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that the changes, the way that Portland students interact with their education is the gold standard from my perspective in terms of what I've seen in urban schools across the country. And the level of student and staff engagement, the level of student voice and commitment from educators in our schools to listening to those voices, to elevating those voices, to giving those voices a place at the table is unprecedented. And that is, without a doubt, a testament to the work that you and all the people that have worked with you have, brought to Portland Public Schools. So we owe Nellie Mae and especially you and the JMG team a debt of gratitude for that work. And as I said, I'm a Johnny-come-lately, so I am going to let my dear colleague Jeannie Crocker tell you a little bit from her perspective as well. And we also have a little something for you.
So it's interesting that the superintendent speaks about being a Johnny-come-lately, because in some ways I felt, well, that's what I was. I was just the latest person to have the honor to jump in and join in this fun. And then I've been thinking about it differently, and would share with you, and I don't mean to embarrass anyone here, but before I came to work in Portland, I worked in a neighboring school district as a high school principal for a long time. And during many of those years, we in the greater Portland area as high school principals came together and worked really hard on high school reform. That is hard work. Any level of change is hard, but changing the American high school is really something else. And I have very distinct memories, and I'll call it out and say, of coming to Portland High School to talk about how we at South Portland High School had created untracked, non-tracked, 9th grade teams, and how we had done this and how we had done that. And that was exciting, and that's what we were doing. We're sharing and collaborating on our work. And that went absolutely nowhere. But it is, so let's fast forward now and realize where the work was effective. Enormous change has been made. It's not going anywhere. It is a part of the heart and soul of the high schools of Portland now. And this is because of the work of Jobs for Maine's graduates leaders, like the two ladies with us now, who came to us, who came knocking on the door and said, we would like to partner with you on this. This is an exciting opportunity. Thank goodness the district said, yes, let's partner, because the rest is history now. And so on behalf of this district and generations of students, I am really wanting to express our gratitude to both of you. But what I'd like to do is read something here and then make a bit of a presentation. Okay, so this is a certificate of appreciation, one for each of these amazing ladies, and it's called Gold Recognition. No cheap stuff for you. In recognition of the leadership, partnership, and support of Jobs for Maine's graduates over the 8 years of the Nellie Mae Grant and our collaborative work in improving student outcomes through student-centered learning, where learning is personalized, competency-based, takes place anytime, anywhere, and students exert ownership over their own learning. Well, that gives me goosebumps to know that this is what has been accomplished for our high school students in the present and to come. And it's my honor to present to you, Maureen, and to you, Kim, on the 7th day of August, 2018, the Certificate of Appreciation. And underneath their names it says, "Together we educate and inspire generations of youth to achieve their goals and dreams." And that is indeed what this work is.
I told Maureen I wasn't going to say anything, but now I have to, and I just want to add my gratitude for this work and for this partnership. Portland Public Schools has been one of the most long-standing partners of JMG in terms of our core programs. But as you were both reflecting, when we came to this work with Nellie Mae and we talked about this role as a resource support organization, the objectives were very clear, but the paths on how, we always talk about pathways, how we were going to get there was not. And so we are grateful for, and Johnny come lately or not, jumping in and being supportive of this. Because in the end, even though it was a risk, it was articulated that you were willing to take the risk on behalf of students. And so we will forever be grateful for this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do want to say that those pictures are going to be on social media, so watch for it.
Okay, moving into, we have no old business this evening, and we've already taken care of item A under new business. First read to approve the district emergency management plan. Where that is the first read, we have no comment on that. Moving into personnel items, consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of administrators. Is there a motion? Oh, Ms. Davis, did you have a clarifying question?
Yeah, I was unable to retrieve this. It didn't come in the printed packet. I'm not able to get it to come up on my phone, which is what I've got here. So I haven't been able to see a list of the people, and before I vote, I think I probably should.
She's got it, yeah, Barb.
Yeah, it didn't, this new packet system has links, but I couldn't find anywhere where the personnel items were listed out where I could see them. And maybe I just haven't found the right place to click yet.
Yeah, I know we are under board docs now and have a new system. What's that? Just one name? Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the issues that I'm going to experience with this is that you have to click multiple places to see each item. And, maybe I'll learn my way around it a little better, but it's a little cumbersome from what we're used to, where you saw things kind of flowing in order, one thing after another. And this agenda's a little difficult, and as I say, I couldn't find the list, but
So
I've got it
I
now.
will say that they are there for everyone except for the administrators one, and I'm not quite sure. It's actually above the memo, so I do think that there is some work that we can do to make sure that these are in an order that is more, sort of more logical. I think
Yeah.
that I can see how you might be confused. If you look above the board memo, Ms. Love, who is the only administrator that we are bringing forward today, she's actually there. So you don't actually have to click through to anything in order to be able to see her. And then below that is the board memo, and when you click on the board memo, that's just the general memo about the action, which is the selection of personnel items, and so I can totally understand where you are confused by that, and we'll try to get that squared away so that but it actually is fairly, each of those items, the administrator item has the administrators listed there, the one-year-only teachers are all listed underneath that. There is no, there is a personnel memo there as well. So, and it's the same memo for each of the items, so I think that we can work on trying to get that to be more succinct, and so we'll
I think so as well,
continue.
and as you know, I prefer my packets printed, and I asked for a printed packet, but none of this was in it, so.
Okay, I apologize for that. We
That's
will
okay.
absolutely
We're
work
all-
on
we're all
getting
learning
that.
as we get through this.
Yeah, I do want to point out that from a staff perspective, this is a ton easier. It sort of, it distributes the responsibility. People can upload things. It's, so we will work through it, and I believe that it will be every bit and actually, easier to reach stuff as you work through it.
Yeah.
But I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So I'll call for a motion on the election of administrators. Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, there is no public comment where this is a personnel item. Any discussion on the motion? Superintendent, I didn't offer you a chance to.
I will say something for both this and for the one-year-only selection items, and actually for the probationary teachers as well, that these are all positions that are in the budget. So the adult ed position was a new position that we created in the budget. The one-year-only positions are either people that are filling in for leaves, or I believe that's correct. They're all leaves and sabbaticals, and then the election of probationary teachers, that's replacements for individuals that left or moved on to different positions. When we get to that one, because Kelly is with us, I would love for her to, after you hopefully vote to approve, have an opportunity to come in and introduce herself to the board.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the personnel items listed, election of administrators, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. Consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of one-year-only teachers. Is there a motion? Mr. Balfont, seconded by Mr. Atkinson. Any questions on this one? Seeing none. Nothing further from the superintendent?
Nope.
All those in favor of approving the personnel items listed, election of one-year-only teachers, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. Consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of probationary teachers. Is there a motion? Mr. Atkinson, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Any questions on this one? Ms. Thompson.
I guess I would just ask the superintendent and Jean, I can't even talk, Assistant Superintendent Crocker. I thought prior, like when Ms. Serial was there and when Ms. Hassan was there before, that they were under the contract for principals. It's always been a teacher leader.
I don't know that it's always been a teacher leader. It was a teacher leader for Ms. Serio. It is also a teacher
So maybe
leader
that was
for
where the
Ms.
shift
Hassan.
happened, because I thought in the past that they were under administrator contracts, but Kelly would know better than I, so. All right, I'm just curious about that, thanks.
So this is the motion of election of probationary teachers, and I see that there's two different effective dates. Do we need two separate motions on that? Okay.
I don't believe you do.
So just to clarify, this motion is for both the probationary teachers effective 8/27/18 and effective 10/1/18. Ms. Morioni.
I'm just curious as to why there is two different dates.
So it's in order to be able to comply with state requirements around retirement. So Ms. Hassan is retiring from her previous position, and there needs to be a separation period. And so that's why her official start date will be 10/1/18.
And then in the beginning of school until that time, what will happen?
I'll let Ms. Crocker give you the details.
Thanks.
We have the best team put together for you. You can't even believe it. This has been an interesting opportunity, and I feel this way about our opportunity to hire someone of Kelly Hassan's background and experience to come back to Peaks. But in the meantime, we will be having a stipend available for a support person to a person within the building, one of the teachers within the building, who, when the teacher leader is not present, either because she might be on Cliff Island or not during her work hours, will be that go-to person as needed. But specifically to your question about what happens in September, more or less, so recent retiree Chris Keegan, teacher leader at Reiki School, is very excited to sub for us. Yeah, exactly. We have put together the puzzle pieces into something absolutely perfect. So she'll be on Peaks Island for the month of September, and then we'll be welcoming Kelly into her official new role. So we're in good hands.
Any other discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the personnel items listed, election of probationary teachers, please indicate. It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative. Congratulations.
Kelly, would you like to come up and introduce yourself to the people that I think already know you, at least by reputation?
Sure. Good evening, everyone, and I'm just simply delighted to come back to Portland Public Schools, specifically to Peaks Island and Cliff Island schools, where, as Superintendent Botanis said, I'm, as many of you know, an alumnus of Peaks Island School, so for me it feels truly full circle and just a unique opportunity that I'm well aware doesn't happen for many people to have this. So I'm simply so excited to start, to work with staff and students, families, both island communities, and continue the great work that Renee Serio has already had in place with both staffs, and I'm over the moon. So I couldn't be happier and can't imagine being in any other place. So thank you for the opportunity. And it's really, really exciting to be back. So
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our personnel items. And where it is before the hour of 10 o'clock, we would take public comment on any items not on this evening's agenda.
George Rowe, West Bayside. I am, I guess we started the evening with the intersection of city business and school department business. I'm going to close with that. On the last day of school this year, the city manager of Portland announced an ambitious 200-bed homeless services center that is going to be located, if Mr. Jennings' plan comes to fruition, less than a quarter mile from the new elementary school, formerly known as the Hall School. And I think it's incumbent on this school board to perhaps maybe a subcommittee of some kind or some other avenue to dig in deep into this proposal, because I was shocked as a resident of Bayside, who certainly at times is frustrated with the state of homeless services in my neighborhood and in the city. I was shocked at how thin and unprofessional the rollout of that proposal was, and the absolute dearth of details that have been presented to the community about it. And what I know, because I've been deep into homeless issues in the 3 years that I've lived, my wife and I lived in Bayside as homeowners, is it is not a best practice to put 200 troubled people under the same roof, mostly in the same room. That is basically human warehousing. And will not serve the homeless guests well, and it will not serve the surrounding community well. And it certainly, I don't believe, will serve the Hall School community when it is rechristened as the Amanda Rose School. So I actually came from the East Bayside National Night Out celebration, which is why I'm so casual tonight. And, people had written off Kennedy Park many years ago as a troubled place that can't be fixed, and tonight there was a wonderful celebration with the whole community. That is what rolling your sleeves up and getting the job done is about. And we have experience. I came to you in the fall when we were talking about the Bayside Learning Center and the administrative headquarters on Portland Street in Cumberland and Alder, and there were a lot of people that were throwing up their hands saying this is a building that we can't work with, that won't suit our needs, that is just not going to function. We need to almost literally just abandon it and move on to some other place. And I've worked with Mr. Stilfen and the superintendent, and we're making progress on the school department being a better neighbor, and also realizing that if you put the time in, and sometimes it is time and effort, you can make your surroundings better. And that's what this Portland, what this community needs to do, is to make the situation in Bayside better first. And if that truly can't work, then yes, we can consider some options of perhaps relocating the center of homeless services to some other community. But I am not impressed with this proposal, and I think that the school department has a real obligation to the community to look deeply. We know that the Bayside building, for instance, was mostly chosen for reasons that had nothing to do with the school department function. There was rumors that the school superintendent at the time lived in Back Bay Tower, and it was just super convenient for him to have this building a few doors down from him. There was this idea that Casco Bay High School needed more room at the Paths location, and so there were all these other agendas that were at issue. And what you guys inherited was a location and a site that didn't really work very well for you. It actually breaks my heart that the Reed School right now is being wonderfully renovated, basically for an educational community and high-end apartments, where we probably could have had a great school department headquarters and a place for our Bayside Learning Community students. But this board at the time didn't make a good decision, and neither did the city council. So unfortunately, the superintendent and this school board has had to work with a less than ideal situation at the Bayside location. But you are making it work, okay? Because you're realizing that you got to work sometimes with what you have, rather than some dream of something better that may end up being a white elephant. So, long story short, and I know the District 3 representative lives pretty much as far away from the Homeless Services Center that's being proposed and still be in District 3 as possible, but I'm pretty sure that the people in District 3 are extremely curious about how this board, and it's certainly its District 3 representative, will engage on this complex issue. I'm not saying it's easy, but somebody needs to engage and somebody needs to get into this, because frankly, the fact that it was rolled out on the last day of school, I think feels strategic, because it meant that the whole summer would go on before that school community would even have a chance to be in the same place to discuss this proposal. And certainly there was an initial intent to have a decision made perhaps by the end of July, which would have prevented the school community from ever having any real engagement. So again, some leadership. I know it's not your homeless services center, but the fact that there is some real school educational issues that need to be addressed. Nobody asked for this out there, and no planning of all the long-term saga of the Hall School has ever anticipated or contemplated being a neighbor of a giant mega shelter. All of the learning communities in downtown Portland have chosen to be there with the Oxford Street shelter. Obviously, Portland High didn't really choose that, but obviously Portland High has been there for many, many years, and everything else has been built up around it, but including the homeless shelter. But Baxter Academy went in with eyes wide open. It's a high school, not an elementary school. The Bayside Learning Community was placed there by this school board and the city council with eyes wide open. And obviously, maybe not eyes wide open enough, but we're working with that. So my point is that community should have some agency and some input, and that should also involve the school department in at least providing a forum for those concerns and those issues, and some operational feedback to the school department as part of this process of evaluating this site in this location. So thank you for all the time you've given me tonight. I hope to see what happens next from you, and all of us hopefully will be watching very closely what the city does. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll close public comment and call for a motion for adjournment. Ms. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. All those in favor? It's unanimous with the student voting in the affirmative.